Hi, welcome to the 1 in 20 show, where we're looking to find the next 1 in 20 successful individuals who are pursuing their passions so that you can too. And today we're at the GoPro headquarters, joined by Abe Kislevitz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's super exciting to be out of our normal space and somewhere new. So
we're here excited. In the GoPro edit bays.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, when did you kind of pick up your first camera? Not GoPro related, like how many years back and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I think I've always been into creative arts and stuff, and so from drawing and painting, that kind of naturally segued into playing with digital cameras. I got our first digital camera was this. It looked like an SLR, but it was terrible, and it actually recorded to mini CDs in the back. So that was one of the first times I actually started using a digital camera, and then that, I think it took like 15-second videos in like 100 pixels by 100 pixels.
Wow.
But then from there, I got like a Canon Digital Elf, and in college, in ski team, I started filming with that, and I started getting into this like weekly video for the ski team.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, it was mainly because I was trying to like show people at USC that we had a ski team and that we were pretty good. So I started this YouTube channel, and I'm like, look, we're doing backflips and stuff. And from there, that kind of just took off, and eventually picked up 2 GoPros because some of the people on our ski team went to ASR, the trade show, and met some people at GoPro back when it was like 8 people, is like the original people.
Wow.
And they gave us 2 of their cameras, and that was the first time that I actually picked up a GoPro. Was when they brought it back, they were like, hey, we got these like head cameras from GoPro. Like apparently you put it on your head and you can like film. And so that was the first experience with a GoPro.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's so, like, if you think about, you were telling me before we started that you graduated 8 years ago. So that would have been even longer before that?
Yeah, that was 2008. So yeah, we're in 2018. 2019 will be kind of like the 10-year anniversary of like first starting to film with like HD cameras and from crazy. GoPro. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Makes me feel old.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool to see like the legacy that you guys lead now, in the sense that, and something that maybe I'll touch on a little later, but just the fact that you've come full circle almost in the way that you guys market the camera and the way you build the camera, in the sense that you started marketing like just to action sports, and now it's like a lifestyle almost thing as well.
Yeah. Combining
a little of the two worlds, and that's super special. But at what point did you guys kind of turn a corner with GoPro to the point where they're like, hey, like, who is this dude? Let's hire him. And,
yeah. It's kind of a funny story. It happened pretty naturally and pretty quickly, actually. So once we got those first cameras, it was I was so excited that some brand believed in our team enough, because I was always, like, as a college student and you're working for the ski team, you're always trying to like talk to people and get free swag for the team. Of like, I love to hook up people and like get some jackets from Session and that kind of stuff. And so when we got these cameras, I'm like, yeah, the quality might not be that cool and that good, but somebody believes in us, so like, let's go film something really cool. And that was kind of when our eyes were opened, when we were actually out on the mountain. We started using them, and it's like, hey, I don't actually have to be like the film bitch anymore. Like, I can put this camera on my head and ski right next to my friends Chris and Caleb and do backflips, but like, we're all still skiing and we're all kind of immersed in the activity. And so I stayed up all night that night, learned Premiere because I was using iMovie before, and was like cutting on every single beat. And I put out this video, and I think it's called like the GoPro Epic Weekend, and they saw it. So like the CEO and the other couple people that were working at GoPro back then.
Yeah.
And I got this email, and they were just like, wow, what you guys are doing is incredible. We'd love to get the footage. And it's kind of like what we do now with GoPro with like the awards program and stuff. It's like we see people out in the world just creating content, and that's kind of what happened with me. It's maybe like the first iteration of that. And then from there, they asked me to do a couple like trial things where they were like, hey, would you mind coming and filming this with us? And I went to the Do Tour that year. And this was all still while I was in school. And they were saying like, hey, yeah, we've got a position open. We would love to start up a YouTube channel, and we want to start filming more stuff with GoPro. And
so that's pre-social media.
Yeah.
Way before.
Totally.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm still in school. I'm studying engineering. I don't really know what I'm going to do after this. And I kind of need a break. So I was going to live in the mountains for a year. So I ended up carrying that through, and I lived in Mammoth for like a whole season after I graduated, because I graduated in December. Okay. And then I just ended up filming every day. And that was right when the HD camera came out. So they gave me an HD camera. And I was just super dedicated to learning everything that there was to know. I was like, it was right when DSLRs were starting to come into play as video. So like the 7D was really popular. So I learned that whole workflow of converting the footage so you don't lose any quality. And then that kind of segued in all the way through the year of, at the very end of it, I'm like, well, I've learned After Effects and Premiere, and I was kind of teaching their media. It was this one guy, Brad Schmidt, who was hiring me eventually. And I was like, hey, here's how I'm getting the best quality out of the GoPro. Here's the practices you should probably use. And I made workflow docs. Gosh. And then eventually...
Teaching them how to like...
Yeah, we were kind of working together, and eventually ended up going out to San Francisco in July of that year and starting full time.
Gosh, that's crazy. How many employees at that point? Would it have been similar to?
I was official employee number 32, I think. Okay. In the office, there were around 20 people. But it was cool. It's like you walk in, you knew every single person, and my first day, I shook hands with everyone, including the CEO, and it was a really cool time to be back there.
Well, and now that you brought that up too, like just initiating kind of into a brand new brand that it's now, it is a brand now, but brand new camera and stuff. And I'm always seeing like new tech that comes out. And it's like, should I put faith in something? Like kind of like how you were doing it. But I know you were stoked out on just how rad the camera itself was, how accessible it was. That's what hooked me when I was younger. I was like, this thing is so easy to use, and it made me feel like I could do something without a massive setup. Yeah. Like without having to do a million things. So I know you've gone on since then. So since that was the Hero 1, you ended up being involved from Hero 2 until now, Hero 7. So that's like 8 or 9 cameras, something like that. And edited probably hundreds of videos.
A lot that travel. People have never seen too.
And got to travel and do all of that stuff all at the same time. I was going to ask kind of what kind of impact did that have on you, considering that you were thinking engineering and, you graduate and you're like, this company's pursuing me. How did that whole thing like kind of...
it was definitely an interesting situation for me personally. I think I've always been really driven and motivated and, sought out success. And I knew that I probably wasn't going to go into a full-time engineering job. But I was really into the creative arts, and all through college I worked with a ski company as a forefront, and I was doing top sheet graphics for skis for like 8 years. I ended up doing 42 top sheet designs. Wow. So they offered me a creative director position full-time in Utah after I graduated, and that was a really solid choice for me. It was going to be doing web design and artwork and t-shirts, and it was kind of everything that I had been doing on the ski team. And then I also got really into web development my last couple of years. So I was doing back-end coding and database design, and that was kind of my job that put me through college all through school. Yeah. And so it was definitely a bit of a leap of faith when you're dealing with this company that's so new. And I thought all of their marketing assets were pretty bad, to be frank. Like you go to their website wasn't good. And when I came on full time, the first thing I said was, "Can I overhaul your website?" Because that was what I had been doing as work for the past 5 years. But I could see that the camera was just an enabling device for me, and it wasn't something that I had to go out of my way to try to make something of it. It was a new tool that I had in the bag, that it was so natural for me to express myself creatively and use it. And I just saw the potential of, like, as soon as this gets in the hands of people, and that was kind of what my what I wanted to do was show people what you could do with a $300 camera. Whereas back then it was only you could get a 5D or you could get a 7D, and those were your options to get like beautiful video, or you could get like an HV30, like an actual camcorder.
Yeah.
And so for me to be able to film with this $300 thing and get HD quality and show people like, here's what an edit could look like with $300 and a little bit of ingenuity and some time.
Yeah.
That was really powerful for me, and it still has remained what I like to try to do. Obviously now video and cameras are so ubiquitous that it's a bit of a harder sell, but it's still like the same device that you can do amazing things with this tiny thing, and it can go places that no other camera can.
And it also has a look that a lot of cameras don't have. It's a semi-fish. For anybody who doesn't know, the GoPro camera, which I'll probably be putting up footage so that people can see it. It is so different. It has such a different look. It makes, what is epic about it is what people were doing with it. Like you were taking it to the slopes and you guys are flipping and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But at the same time, you guys ended up marketing toward even more lifestyle. Like it can be used for everything.
Yeah,
like I don't know if I'm taking a leap there, but that's kind of what I've gathered.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to extend it beyond like what it's really powerful for, but what it really has the benefit of is being an immersive tool. So it's really good for capturing raw emotions and just like jumping into the action with somebody and feeling like you're there. And that's always been the draw of GoPro footage is you hand an athlete something and then suddenly the audience is being taken for a ride of an experience that they've never been before, or they're just experiencing that person in more of a raw angle versus like setting up cameras, and you're definitely changing your perception of what's going to happen if there's a camera pointed at you.
Yes.
Versus if you slap a camera in your head, you kind of forget about it. And like, I can't tell you how many memories I have of just me hanging out with my friends because I had a camera rolling, and everyone forgets the camera's rolling, and it's just like you and the boys, or you and all your friends. And I always go back and just will sit there and watch footage for hours. And like, these are like the memories that my brain's not good enough to capture, but I still have them, which is really cool.
Yeah. And you've chopped them up into countless edits of even your own. And I remember for me, like I told you earlier, the first video I ever saw from GoPro when I was like 12 or 13 was the kayak video, with Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites by Skrillex when he was blowing up. And after that, I think I found your channel within a year and I started watching your stuff.
Nice.
And I felt like a little bit liberated because I was like, oh, he's just doing videos with his friends and it's cool. And that raw emotion and like just even what you guys were just able to do with something that didn't need perfecting, like you mentioned, was like so cool to me. I was like, I can do this. I can learn how to edit from this. I can all that.
And I think what the draw of our ski team videos, that's kind of like what I became known for on YouTube, was that we weren't professional skiers. And like, we were doing backflips and stuff, but those aren't very hard compared to like every other ski video. Like you had two ways of trying to get popular. It's like, if you're a skier, you're really good and you're going to try to make an edit.
Right.
Us, it was like, we're not going to be better than all these people and our videos aren't going to be like that. So let's just go with like the lifestyle and just film ourselves just doing what we do and being ourselves. And I think that really resonated with a lot of people around the world because it also got a lot of people into skiing. They're just like, I want to live this lifestyle and I want to get that camera and I want to start skiing and I kind of want to feel like I'm in this same sort of culture, but you don't have to be doing double backflips and you don't have to be stomping tricks to make a cool video. It's more about let's just live our lives and have this lifestyle and capture it on GoPros.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I was going to ask, this is kind of a side note, but do you think that Mammoth has like maybe not like doubled their business, but do you think it did help Mammoth that they maybe were endorsed by GoPro? And
I'm sure that it's gotten some business. Obviously, it's a little more local, where I think it's cool that the internet gives us fans around the world that appreciate what we do. Sure. But Mammoth has always been really appreciative of like having me there and helping me with getting passes and stuff. And they obviously know the value of creating content and stuff. So like kudos to Mammoth because they've been amazing. Yeah. And same with USC. It's like the amount of messages that I got from people that said they came to USC because of the ski team and because they saw videos. And even when I was still there, like some of my best friends now, like Matt Cook and Chris and Caleb, when I first met them, they're like, we came here because we saw there was a ski team, or we came here because we saw your videos and we wanted to be part of this.
Is that how you met them?
That's how I met Matt. And Chris came up to me the first day. I remember he's like, hey man, like I was going to go to Colorado, but I saw USC at a ski team. So like I'm here and I'm stoked.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool though. I mean, all of that, you know, comes together to show how valuable the internet is and social media, and how it's like, I mean, I don't want to go this route, but it's like a drug almost. Like, you know, like how getting a text gives you like a rush.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but
yeah, totally.
Social media has like a gratification and a connection now that maybe only movies or TV had prior to that. And I was kind of going to actually go into the value of YouTube, which it's a hit or miss. It is a platform for content though, and was the only one for a long time. How has like putting together tutorials, because you've kind of been known as doing that for people with GoPro, and whether it be settings for in-camera or editing or even photo editing, all of it. What made you want to kind of do that? Is it kind of what you were saying earlier, that you just wanted to show people it was an accessible thing to do?
Yeah, and I think I'm in a unique position where I have the ability to use cameras longer, like new GoPros that I get months before anybody else. Yeah. And so I have that ability to show people like, I've already used this. I've like battle tested it, and here's how you can just get right to the point. So I obviously have that advantage, which is, it's always good to have some sort of advantage or own a sector.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to pick like, what is my niche, and I think the really successful YouTubers just find that and dive into it, and then they own it. And so if you know, like, I need to find somebody that does wakeboarding GoPro. It's like Chris Rogers. He's the guy that always does wakeboarding GoPro stuff. Or I need to find tutorials in GoPro. Oh, that's Abe Kislevitz. Go to his website. So it's an easy thing to own and not try to do too many things, because, like, I would love to do more stuff, and, like, I want to be the drone guy and the cinematic guy, but I just don't have time. And so I kind of pick, like, what's the path of least resistance that's the most helpful for most people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, and I wanted to ask you along that line somewhat, do you have a favorite trip that you've got to go on? Like, do you have like a favorite, because you've edited so many videos for them, but like the launch videos are the most iconic. Probably people everywhere see each one and see how it steps up, right? Do you have a favorite launch video that you guys shot? Because I know you do a lot of the shooting.
Yes. My favorite launch video definitely would be Hero 3.
Okay.
Because between Hero 2 and Hero 3 was kind of like the biggest leap between technology, whereas we moved to a new sensor, so we were using like beautiful images with a Sony sensor. The low light was way better. And that was the first big step also with GoPro, where we were this tiny company, and then we're about to release this new technology, and our media team grew, and we had the resources to go around the world. Whereas before it was kind of like, let's kind of throw a bunch of stuff together and see what we get.
For sure.
So that one we storyboarded, and we went out and we shot with like zip lines and drones before it was like an octocopter.
Yeah, before it was a thing. Yeah.
And I think it shows in the video. It still like holds up, and we tried to really push ourselves creatively and cinematically and show people like, this is like the best thing you could get with the camera of this size. And so like, from the whales spinning underwater and the mountain bikers in New Zealand, and we went heli skiing, and it was like a lot of our firsts too. Like, I had never been heli skiing. I had never been to New Zealand, or it's just a very memorable kind of step in the process of history, I think, with GoPro.
It may have been, might I say, a turning point, because I think from there, like from being a consumer of it, like that was a camera for me, that, because I didn't get a 2. I had a 1, which I showed you earlier. And then I got the 3. I was like waiting. My dad's like, okay, don't get the 2. It might be just like a upgraded version. And then that one came out. But I think like we've been talking about, those launch videos like sell the camera so well. And then like the consistent uploads also sell it, I think, you know, like just having that constant influx. And speaking of the cameras, what is your opinion on the Hero 7, which just came out? In-camera stabilization, which is brand new and so exciting for anybody who understands, you know, how much easier it is to use. What are some of your favorite features? Why is it the most powerful that you guys have? Like, what are the new codecs? All that stuff.
Yeah. So the Hero 7 is actually really exciting. I know it always kind of sounds like marketing fluff when you're like, yeah, you should buy the new camera because it's the best thing ever. But it always is the best thing because we have engineers here that are working tirelessly to like make new features and make these cameras amazing. And I work side by side with a lot of them, and there always is a lot of new amazing technology. So with the Hero 7 specifically, there's a lot of like internal IP that GoPros created from the ground up with stabilization and like the hyperlapse time warp feature, where it's like no other camera is doing the things that we're doing. And there's a lot of technology that even I know under the hood that I wish that I could tell everybody that's like it's even more amazing than you think it is.
Yeah, the next step.
But yeah, the stabilization truly is like way better than any other camera. I've seen every single cell phone with optical stabilization lined up next to a GoPro, and the Hero 7 just blows it out of the water.
Yeah. And
there's even a lot of stuff like rolling shutter stabilization that it just completely gets rid of.
That's a lifesaver.
Yeah, and
that's
so
crazy.
It's crazy because so much of my job, it's funny because in the past so much of my job was on the media team we're just really good at knowing the camera's strengths and mounting things really well. And so we have all these rigs with like metal extensions and stuff, and it's like, yeah, you guys are using the GoPro mounts that the public can buy, but we're using really expensive equipment.
Right.
We can use all these tools and get really amazing footage and showcase it. But now it's truly, we're just using regular GoPro mounts because we don't need the most stable mount. So you can literally mount something off the side of a car that's like bouncing around, but the stabilization is so good that it just doesn't matter.
That's like so unheard of, like in the last, that's even just in the last 2-3 years.
Totally.
Because, I mean, I remember I've just been seeing, like, the Movi. We kind of talked about that. And then just even the handheld ones, and you guys came out with the Karma.
Yep.
And those things helped. But then it's like, now all of a sudden everything's obsolete. And that's kind of how I feel like tech just keeps moving forward. And
it is an interesting thing because I love the Karma Grip. Like, the Karma Grip is such a good piece of technology. It's so stable and so sturdy. And so it's a little bit of like you're shooting yourself in the foot of this camera doesn't really need the Karma Grip anymore. But as filmmakers, we kind of learn to love these tools, and then you kind of have to learn to let go. And maybe I don't need a Karma Grip anymore. And I realize that I haven't taken it out. I mean, I'll probably still use it filming because I like doing like ND stuff and getting a little artsier with it. But I haven't used my Karma Grip in 6 months, which is crazy because I used to use it exclusively because I wanted to have stable shots and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's crazy. It's changing the game for sure. Every camera does that you guys have released, which is awesome. And I think it gets more and more people stoked on what it's capable. You know, if there's any doubters or haters, it's like, you know, embrace it. It's you guys are not trying to be a cinema camera.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like for those, this is more technical. That's what I mean. But something that, you know, that's crazy for me to think about is it's more than just a camera, because the mounts were so like, what mount can I get? You know, I have the camera, and it was like all of a sudden there was a gratification to be able to get another mount.
I'm sure.
And then, you know, you guys released a drone that came out, the Karma Grip. You guys had so many innovations that just kept coming down the pike. And that's just exciting to see, because I think there's a lot of companies that have learned from kind of what you guys have set as a precedent and tried things that maybe other companies were not safe to try. You know,
or we weren't safe to try either.
Right. It just worked.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's just so cool. It's just so cool to see everything that you guys keep doing. And we were talking before we even came about how there's no other camera, let alone like, I mean, you guys are kind of like an entire brand now, the way you guys have built, but there's nothing even close in the way of the social presence that you guys have on social media, like 15 million Instagram followers, and there's a lot of people, celebrities, who don't even have close. And, you know, you have to think that there's something lasting about that, about what you can do with it. I don't know what you think about that, but...
Yeah, it's really been an interesting evolution and revolution. I think we were right place, right time, right when the social media boom was happening. But, like, I wouldn't attribute... It's like, it's all the customers. It's just this ability for somebody... I mean, it's really easy to market because... Like, unlike Mountain Dew or Red Bull, if somebody goes out and buys a Red Bull, like, other people aren't going to want to buy a Red Bull because of that. Right. But a GoPro, you see somebody's footage and you buy a GoPro, and then you create footage and they see a GoPro and they buy a GoPro. So it's this self-marketing device where it just sells itself if it's good. And
right.
luckily we've been able to stay on top. Like, it's always been the number one action camera. And hopefully it's the number one camera that people think of other than their cell phones, which it's an amazing travel camera. And that's where we're really seeing sort of the next evolution of the brand, is that not only action sports, but travel is kind of the main other marketing point. Because when you go out to these resorts and stuff, every single person has a little GoPro in their backpack when they take it kayaking. And, like, you don't want to lose your phone.
Yeah.
You just have a lot of... I don't want to lose my phone.
Yeah,
there's places...
It's a little bit more of an investment.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just more of like a personal, like, there's so much information in here, and people don't really understand, like, when it goes into the cloud and you get a new phone, it's more of just like, I gotta have this and I can't lose it, especially when I'm on vacation. Whereas if you lose a GoPro, it sucks. It's $400 or $300, but you're not losing that personal, like... Everything that I own is in that
right.
GoPro.
Right. And that's kind of interesting, that people would choose, because in theory, like, this is becoming a lot more technical, but, like, in theory, the settings and different things that are available on a phone now, even though when they used to boast the 4K and it was really like an up-res 1080, now they're actually coming out with phones that are shooting true 4K.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so what's the advantage of using a GoPro versus a phone?
Right.
And there's so many.
Yeah, it's always been this interesting thing of, like, are we comparing ourselves to a phone? Do we have to separate ourselves from a phone? But you kind of learn that people want to use a GoPro if they're doing the activities that warrant using a GoPro. And so I think that's a good thing for even people in GoPro to understand of, we're not trying to replace what you use a phone for, because I use a phone every time I go run, take a picture of the sunset. Like, I'm not going to bring a GoPro with me, but... I know the strengths of a GoPro, and I use it when it's good to use a GoPro. And so for us, I think there was a time where we were trying to expand into, like, an everything camera, where we are trying to be everything and take a GoPro and use it instead of your phone. But I think, and really thankfully, is now everybody is kind of realizing, let's just market to the people that really love GoPro and use GoPros. So anybody that's doing any sort of activity capture or creative arts, or people that are doing travel. And I think that is a sector that it's big enough that it can be a really powerful thing if people embrace it.
Definitely. And I totally agree. And a little bit of background too, and I've mentioned this before, but just seeing what you were doing with it all those years ago, and then also just seeing what you guys were putting out as a brand, that's what, like, motivated me enough to make 100 of my own videos, which ended up landing me an internship at 16, and I've been working for 4 years, and I'm only 20.
Yeah.
And I think I got my drive and work ethic because of stuff that I kept seeing.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, well, they're tirelessly putting out stuff. You personally were putting out stuff all the time. And I'm like, well, the only way for me to really turn some sort of a corner is to be like, okay, I'm going to just put everything aside and just go for it. And that's what's so cool about the camera and the feeling of the company. And I don't know. I get so but
that's awesome.
It's going to be, the future of the company is exciting, but I love the beginning and the past too.
It's a really cool story. And it's been an honor to obviously been through it. I think not a lot of people get that experience of starting at a startup and then going through IPO, and there were dark times and layoffs and like kind of making it out the other side of there still is a hopeful, bright future for GoPro, and the brand is as strong as it's ever going to be. I mean, it's going to get stronger. So it's been a really cool ride, and met a lot of really amazing people along the way, and like super thankful for all the opportunities that I've been able to meet all the athletes and go to all these events and travel around the world. And it's like a life that when I was growing up I would have never even imagined that would have been possible. Yeah,
and that you didn't necessarily need your school. And the funny thing is, I don't want to get into this subject, but I keep talking to people who keep saying like, oh yeah, I didn't even use my school at all. Yeah. And I'm like, well, why am I getting my degree? I know it matters in the end. But that's a funny side note.
I actually love this conversation because a lot of people use jobs like mine and things like that as an excuse not to go to college. But I think college is a super valuable thing, even if you're not using what you're studying in. And like, I don't think a lot of people actually learn that much from what they're studying in college. There's so much other stuff going on.
Yeah, sure.
But what it does teach you is to be disciplined and how to communicate. Yeah. And every single friend that I have now is from my college experience, and it just connects you with so many like-minded people and people that are curious about the world. And I would never change, even though I went to study engineering and I didn't like going to my classes, but I would have never changed that because I am where I am because of that. And it's proven that I think everything happens for a reason, and you're just, if you work hard, and you're going to end up where you should be, probably.
Yeah, I would hope.
Yeah.
After all that money, right? I mean, USC is not a cheap school, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, thankfully, they have really good financial aid. So it is a private school. So if you're poor like I was growing up, then it's pretty affordable.
It's worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last kind of GoPro question I want to ask you. Because I want to make sure that I still include you in this, not just where you've worked. And I know it's a big part of your life. This is kind of a lighter question, but if you could rank all the GoPros from, I don't know, did you ever use like the Eclipse or the 960, like from years and years ago?
I used the 960 probably once. Okay. Sold at Costco only.
Yeah. So if you could rank them generally, or even a top three, because I know there's a lot.
Hero 4 I would probably put on top. I mean, putting aside like technology and I think Hero 4 was 4K in this tiny little package.
This big.
It wasn't. It's smaller than the cameras are now because I never used a waterproof housing when I was in the snow. And you'll see that in all of my pictures and videos. Everyone is just like, oh my gosh, you're going to get your camera wet. What are you doing? But I never had a camera break on me from getting wet. But it was so small and so light. And the quality of it, if you put video that I shoot now and video that I shot with the Hero 4, other than higher frame rates and stuff, they're pretty... Once I would color correct the footage quite a lot.
Thoroughly.
Then they look pretty similar. I mean, now the Hero 7 out of the box looks amazing. You don't have to color correct it. You have high frame rates. You have in-camera stabilization. But if you had to do that kind of comparison, you could get similar stuff with the Hero 4 that you can now get with the Hero 7. So that was probably my favorite. Beyond that, Hero 3 was amazing. Awesome. Hero 5 is kind of like the little workhorse that always works. That it does 4K, it's waterproof. I felt like the color was always on point. And I like Hero 5 too. But now Hero 7 has been amazing.
So. Yeah, it's I don't know. I was kind of asking that too for time of life, because there are so many different experiences that you've had with each one. Yeah. Right? Like,
actually,
so
I do,
much to happen.
The unfortunate ending of the session line, I do still love my Hero 5 session. Yeah. Yeah, the little camera, I keep it, when I surf, it's kind of like my surf camera. I keep it without any housing in my wetsuit right in my neck.
Is that what you do? I always wonder if it's in your mouth.
I take it out and put it in my mouth when I catch waves. So it's still part of the arsenal of cameras.
Yeah. I know there's so many different, again, so many different revolutions you guys had. Like if it couldn't get any smaller, that's what I thought when it came out, and I was like, this is rad.
Yeah.
So cool. This is kind of more toward our audience too. This next question, but we kind of touched on it a little bit. But how? Because you mentioned you've always had a work ethic that is easily reflected if you see what you've accomplished and such in almost 10 years out of school. But how hard do you have to work to do what you love? Because obviously it takes a good amount of talent. And I ask everybody that comes on this question because I feel like it transcends all different forms of the arts.
Yeah.
Whether it's performance or, behind the camera, in front of the camera, anything. When do you have to be realistic with yourself? And how many hours do you have to put in? Like it's a lot of hours.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing with social media is it gives the appearance that people aren't working behind the scenes, where it's just like you're just traveling and then this amazing content pops up and like they're just creating content all the time. How do they just pump it out? And every successful person that I've seen on social media is such a workhorse behind the scenes, and they are just like staying up all night, and there's no shortcut to success. I would say there's a lot of people that are looking for like, what are your presets and what is this, like how can I get your job? I want to edit a couple things, but everybody that I've talked to, and myself included, it's like you really have to put in your time. Luckily, like I had all of college and kind of because I wasn't super into engineering, my way of procrastinating was focusing on creative arts. And so that was what I would stay up all night doing and
not go to class.
Right. And
for sure.
And in high school, same thing. That was kind of when I didn't really party in high school. I didn't really do a whole lot socially outside of skiing, and I think that was my time when I really focused on like, let me learn Photoshop and After Effects and Premiere. And it seems like it kind of happens overnight for a lot of people, but you realize there's such a long history to this like 10 to 20 year period of like, we've really put in a lot of hours. And the early time at GoPro, when I lived in San Francisco, I was a couple miles from the office. I would like bike to work a lot of times. But it was me and one other guy for a couple months, and then two people, and we were staying there all night. I would leave at like 3 a.m. and have like a bike light on me, or we'd grab some like LED cinema lights and put on my chest in a chest mount. And so it was a lot of work. I don't think it comes very easily, unfortunately. No. But
well, and that's what everybody says. I mean, it is true. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, you have to just be realistic and realize anything, especially in entertainment or in, anything film, honestly, anything film related is that way.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. The hours on set and all of that stuff. But I mean, it transcends to post-production and so much of that, but even being an actor, you're always looking for gigs.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to use this as an example, but I mean, even with you, like I knew that the only way that we could land this was if I kept following up.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like the worst thing in the world. I feel like a jerk, but I know that that's the only way to like actually make a connection.
And that's what I tell people that I genuinely want to do something. I'm like, here's my phone number. Please keep texting me. Don't feel bad about it, because it's going to feel like I'm ignoring you.
Yeah.
But the only way to really get something that you want is like to be persistent and to follow through. And I'm glad that you did, because we're here now. And
yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
You're making a dream come true. I think I responded when you emailed me. I was like, you're making a young version of myself just like freak out of his skin. And but I wanted to also ask you kind of what you're up to personally, like any projects that you're doing just for yourself, or coming up, not related to here or related to here. I don't know.
Yeah. So personally, I've been pretty lucky with my position at GoPro, because I've been there a while. And I think they are recognizing that the stuff that I do in my spare time, which is social media, my YouTube tutorials and stuff, is something that they want to see me carry out. So it was always something that I did in my free time, like on the weekends and at night. And as part of my job now, they're letting me kind of work on my blog and stuff, and that I don't kind of have to like hide and do that later at night. It's like, I'm going to work on my blog. I'm going to go shoot these new cameras in situations and test them in the field. We have an amazing engineering IQ team and stuff, but they always value outside opinions and stuff. So they'll give me new firmwares to test and new cameras to test. And so getting my perspective on things out in the field is really valuable.
Yeah.
So it still kind of comes back to GoPro, but a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is like YouTube tutorials, and I'm trying to do it more. And kind of, there was a time where I was just so busy with GoPro that my YouTube, you can see like the subscriber count on my YouTube channel, and then 2010, when we start getting really busy, it just like tanks. And I posted like one video a year for 3 years after that.
I remember. I was waiting.
And I have so much content that I always wanted to edit, and I keep kidding myself, like, I'm going to get around to this and this and this, and then you try to have a personal life, exercise, you know, it just kind of goes out the window.
Well, in your new Japan series, this is like, I'm going to plug you for yourself, so you don't have to do it. But your new Japan series is from 2 years ago, right? Something like that?
4 years ago.
4 years.
Yeah.
And I remember like seeing the footage in some of the videos, but it was like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you didn't really get to see like the whole process, which is cool that you're now releasing that.
Yeah, well, I have another one out next week, and then for the next 5 weeks. And that was really cool because this was back when GoPro was creating a bunch of content. We had a product education team, and that Japan production was kind of one of my dream passion projects, where I finally got to go to exactly where I wanted to go, grab the athletes that I wanted to grab. And I brought Chris and Caleb, my two best friends, as my number 1 and 2 for film hands. And Chris came along to he was heading up the product education team, which was kind of separated from my media side. Yeah. And so he filmed behind the scenes the whole time to build up this product education portfolio for the GoPro. He has a GoPro tutorials YouTube channel.
Yes, right.
And so we had this guy, Joseph, who still works at GoPro today, but he worked for like 3 months editing all these things together. Gosh. And then it was kind of changing of the organization and priorities, and we're not going to focus on this tutorial thing too much. And so they just kind of sat on a hard drive, 95% done. So I asked them for the hard drive and talked to some people at GoPro, and I'm like, I'm going to finish these off. I want to release them on my own YouTube channel. Don't worry we don't need to find a place for GoPro. Because
it was originally going to go on the
It was going to go on either the
channel.
main channel or the tutorial channel. Yeah. And it's old technology. We're using DJI drones and old gimbals from Feiyu Tech.
I saw one go up in the episode, and I was like, that looks like a Phantom 1
or 2. Phantom 2.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard sell for the GoPro marketing. You kind of always have to juggle what are our marketing initiatives and what are we trying to communicate. And even now with the YouTube channel now, even though we still sell a Karma grip, we're trying not to show people using Karma grips because we're trying to push this idea of in-camera stabilization. So it becomes really hard because as an artist, you create all this stuff and you pour your heart into these things, and then sometimes market initiatives switch, and you know, we couldn't have foreseen that a year ago, and maybe we've been working on these assets for so long. So it's really cool to be able to release stuff that maybe just my core following will really appreciate seeing. And it's not just about the technology of the time. Even though it's 4 years old, it's still kind of how are we doing this filmmaking, and the episodes coming up are really cool with just how we're organizing, and we show us all. There's this one scene in particular where there's all this pillow line, and we're arranging the athletes, and we've got me down on the bottom on a slider, and Caleb up there with a drone, and then Chris at the top doing behind the scenes. So you really see how we're on radios working together to create a little production. If you only have, and that's the cool thing about GoPro is we can go out with 2 or 3 people on a production team and come back with something that looks like it was 15 or 20 people.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been on sets, and I'm sure you have too, where you show up for a commercial shoot, and you're like, what are the 75 other people doing?
Probably not a whole lot. But that was similar. Like my first pro set that I set foot on earlier this year, I just was like, I asked to come on to be like a 3AC for this guy who just did Bruno Mars's new video, and so he's pretty rad, but I was like changing batteries and watching the voltage to see when I needed to change it again. And it was like 18 hours on set that day just for a visit. And I was just like, I don't think I can do this all the time.
Yeah.
And it gives you this camera and kind of like this whole conversation. I mean, you have kind of the flexibility to be able to do things that you want to do and yet, make something look just as epic maybe. Because something like that could suck. That somebody put, $20,000 that has a massive team involved.
Oh, I've definitely seen $1 million productions come back with nothing, and you end up having to scrap it all and redo it. And it's interesting seeing both sides of it. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to play to your strengths of what are you trying to sell, what are you trying to communicate. And honestly, whenever we do stuff in-house and we use teams that are passionate and people that have been doing GoPro for a long time, that's the stuff that really succeeds in our eyes and in the CEO's eyes. It's so authentic, and you're not trying to come at it from a different angle, and you're not taking people from the outside that don't know the culture. And so there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff that you don't really realize is happening, but it's really cool to be part of.
For sure. Well, thanks for taking the time to do it. This whole thing, it's really cool to finally connect with you.
Yeah.
Felt like that would never happen, so it's kind of cool. If you want, go into this camera and talk about the $1 million challenge, because if you want to use something for this, you can.
Yeah.
But I figure people can kind of know about it because it's pretty rad.
Yeah, the $1 million challenge. So through GoPro Awards, it's a program where you submit content and we award you for it. And right now, instead of us making a Hero 7 launch video, which we kind of did like a bit of like a marketing video this year, we wanted, because the camera is so good now and anybody can create really quality content, we wanted to see what people would film with a Hero 7. And so up until December 7th, I think, is the deadline. And if you get a Hero 7, you submit a footage to gopro.com/awards or search $1 million challenge. And we've got a guy in here currently cutting the highlight video. And if one of your clips gets selected or multiple clips of yours get selected and gets put in this highlight video, you get an equal portion of $1 million. So if there's 10 people's clips in the video, then you each get $100,000. If there's 100 different people in the video, then you each get $10,000, but you're guaranteed at least $10,000. So I've been doing stories on my Instagram. It's like, if you're a filmmaker and you're creative, go find some friends, find some good light, grab a Hero 7 and watch some of our previous launch videos, because I think that'll give you an idea of a cool story that you could do, or a little production. Grab some like skateboarders at sunrise or something and submit some of these things. And I mean, chances are pretty high if you're if you're into filmmaking that you could get at least $10,000.
Pretty rad. I mean, that's an opportunity you don't want to really pass up on.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
I'm already thinking about it.
Yeah, I would totally do it if I could, and I've told my friends, I'm like, you guys,
easy money.
Easy money. Yeah. But it's really cool. I think it really gets people to get their creative juices flowing. Sometimes we just need a reason.
Totally.
For me, a lot of it is, oh yeah, I can make a YouTube video and people will appreciate it, but. It's really cool. Sometimes even when brands approach me, I'm like, now I actually have a reason to go shoot something. And if you just have that little creative juice to get you out of bed for sunrise, then you're stoked at the end of it. You're like, I did something with my day, and I've experienced something new, and I let myself try something new creatively. So give it a try.
Yeah. Well, follow Abe on Instagram at Abe Kislevitz.
Yeah.
I'll throw up the tag so that we have that underneath. And then follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 20 Show. Thanks for supporting everything we're doing. We're really excited. I mean, this is a step toward the direction of kind of what we're trying to, bring everybody into this world of working professionally at what you want to do.
Yeah, totally.
And so we're really excited for what's coming up. I'm excited to get you guys involved in everything that we're doing. We're in Carlsbad, not at the studio like we normally are. So that's exciting. So follow along with us, and we'll have a new episode up shortly.
Thank you.